which supports 2 foundation courses, Design and Modeling and Automation Robotics. There are multiple specialization units to augment the science and technical education curricula. At the high school level, there are 3 threads: the traditional and well-established engineering thread, the biomedical science thread, and more recently, the computer science thread. PLTW high school students have the opportunity to take progressively stronger courses in a particular thread along with college preparatory math and science. Each of the high school threads culminates in a capstone experience where students identify a unique problem and then work with their team and industry mentors using the engineer design process to establish a solution. Students document their work in the Innovation Portal. The Innovation Portal is not unique to PLTW. Elliot will share more of the history in a moment. Any student can use the Innovation Portal for any project. The value is that the Innovation Portal provides a step-by-step documentation process that facilitates a design solution, and that brings your expertise to the table. I want to personally thank you for volunteering to be a judge in our competition for high school students across the state of Wisconsin. The competition is open to all biomedical innovation and engineering design and development students in the state of Wisconsin who are currently enrolled in one of the capstone courses. The impetus behind this competition is to give students the opportunity to move yet another high school project from a box in the attic to an opportunity to have their work reviewed by a panel of experts, and the possibility of having a feasibility study completed on their portfolio to determine the marketability of their design solution. This competition has been generously financed by Rockwell Automation and supported by the Small Business Development Center and Wisconsin Innovation Service Center housed at UW-Whitewater under the leadership of Mr. Ronald Bud Gayhart. Milwaukee School of Engineering has provided time in my schedule to orchestrate the administrative support needed to offer this competition to our PLTW network. This year we have over 140 students registered, representing 24 schools. That translates into a potential of roughly 50 portfolios if all registered teams submit. I currently have 57 judges. For your information, today's training will be recorded and made available on YouTube for future reference. I will send the link out to you when Elliot sends it on to me. With us today is Mr. Elliot Mork from the PLTW National Office. Elliot will walk us through the scoring rubric, which is embedded in the Innovation Portal where students have submitted their portfolios. The judging window is June 8th through July 15th. I would ask that you judge the portfolios based on how well a team has completed the elements of the rubric, not on the idea or problem. How well students can document the design process of their problem solution is what I'm asking you to judge. Connected to your evaluation of how well a team has documented their work is scholarship money, as well as the opportunity for a feasibility study by the Wisconsin Innovation Service Center. The competition is based on documentation, not idea. This reflects how well the student team understands the documentation process. Upon completion of your work, I will tabulate the results and personally contact the top teams. This year we will be recognizing our winners at a special ceremony on August 3rd. Again, thank you for volunteering your time. So without further ado, let me turn the control over to Elliot.
Thank you, Patricia. This is Elliot. Before I get going, I want to check a few things. The first, that I successfully unmuted myself and you're actually hearing me. The second is that you found the chat box. The chat box is a great resource for asking questions. You can unmute yourself and ask anything, interrupt me, also pause for questions, or feel free to type your questions in the chat box as I'm going. But if you could, go ahead and send me a chat in the chat box if you find it and you can hear me. All right, great. Getting some confirmation. It's always good to know that I unmuted correctly. As Patricia said, I am recording this session, so you'll have this available to you afterwards as a YouTube link. It takes me a little bit of time to process it. The computer takes a little bit of time to process the video and then upload it to YouTube. So it might take me an hour or two. You may get it tomorrow. But you'll have that to look back on in a few weeks when you get the portfolios. If you want to fast forward to one section, if you forget one thing, where to click, or one question that you have, you'll have access to the full training to Zoom right where you want to go to in that recording. So let's go ahead and get going. Let's see, we can click here. This is the outline of what I'll be covering today. The first two things, hopefully you've already accomplished, and I think most of you already have because you're a registered judge. And if you've, the first two steps are how to get connected to the competition on the Innovation Portal. The very first one is making sure your browser is up to date. The Innovation Portal does make use of some fairly advanced features in newer browsers, and so you want to make sure that your browser is up to date. And you can do that by either visiting the Innovation Portal to automatically check the browser for you, or whatismybrowser.com, and we'll make sure that your browser is up to date. The second step is to create an Innovation Portal account. There is no special judge account, and so every account is created equal on the Innovation Portal, and then gets permissions within the Innovation Portal to be a judge. So the step after creating the account is to send your email to Patricia. She can send you an invitation to join the 2016 Wisconsin competition as a judge, and then when you accept it, you will have access to be the judge. And I think most of you have already done that. The next thing I'll cover is an overview of how the online system works, just the Innovation Portal in general. I'll show you how to access the portfolios that will be assigned to you. They'll be assigned to you June 7th or 8th, somewhere in there, depending on when all the students get everything complete, and we have it all tallied up and send it out. I'll show you how to use the rubric that you'll be using to evaluate the student portfolios. It's a pretty rigorous rubric that was designed with a NSF grant over a period of 3 years with a collaboration of engineering educators and collegiate researchers. So it's a pretty good tool to use to evaluate student work in a consistent way, even through the virtual platform that we're using, being the Innovation Portal. I'll show you how to access that rubric, and then I'll show you how to score, to find scored examples. Those same researchers and engineering educators score some sample portfolios and provide you a baseline for what the score should be. And this is really useful, especially because we're judging virtually. And if this were a science fair, a physical science fair, you'd have the chance to walk around and kind of calibrate yourself to the quality of work that's been occurring with all the students. In the virtual platform, you don't have access to view all of the student work. You can't just walk around. You only have access to the ones you're assigned to. So this is a great resource for you to kind of have that walk around the room calibration, to have access to the scored examples that that engineering educators have kind of come to consensus on. This portfolio is this score. Then the last thing I'll show you how to do is submit your scores to Patricia. All judging is going to be due July 15th, so you have a couple weeks, about 4 weeks a little bit over 4 weeks, I think, to get that in to you if you get the portfolios on the 7th or 8th of June. If you have any specific Innovation Portal technical question issues, if you ever have issues accessing your account or don't know where to click on something, can't find your portfolios, feel free to send me an email. My email address is emork@pl2w.org. If it's something more competition focused, like something specific for the schools or the submission into this competition or about the awards, that's a question better addressed to Patricia. But either way, we can get the question forwarded to the right person. So, but I wanted to provide you my email address for any questions for a fast response. This is the first two steps, just how to get connected. First step is to create an account. And again, there's no special judge account. It's just everyone's account is the same. You're creating the same type of account that students create. The next step is to give the exact email address to Patricia. That's how she generates that invitation. She can send it to you within a portal she has access to. You'll be on the lookout for an invitation, and you'll get that invitation in two different ways. One is through email, and then the other is through a notification system built within the Innovation Portal. That email that you receive has a link to accept the invitation, and that link will only work once. So we've been having a little bit of confusion with judges because they'll click it again and then get a 404 error and not load the Innovation Portal. But that's because you've already clicked that link and you're already in as a judge. So if you click that link again, it's only a one-time use, so it will result in an error. And so to actually go to the Innovation Portal after you've accepted, you'll need to go to your browser and go to innovationportal.org. That link is only good for one click. So this is a little bit of an overview of about competitions hosted on the Innovation Portal and how the structure is working to give you context for what your role is within the larger system and competition here. So students are working on their portfolios right now. The first step that they did was registering for the competition. That gives the competition administrator, in this case Patricia, some idea of how big the competition will be, and so that's why she knows that the competition is going to be about somewhere between 50 portfolios or 57 portfolios. One was a judges, one was a portfolios, but that's how she knows how large the competition will be, and she knows how many judges to recruit. Once students register, then she starts recruiting judges, and we're already past that phase. We have judges that have committed to judging and the appropriate number to actually judge. Excuse my pauses. I'm still recovering from a cough, and I'm muting myself so you don't have to hear that. So the submission window is May 9th through June 5th. So June 5th, all the student work will have to be completed and actually submitted to the competition. Students have that window from starting. It's already open until the 5th of June to get their portfolio into the competition. There's going to be quite a bit of portfolios loaded into the competition. I think I heard 57 as the number, or 50. I got those mixed up, but those portfolios will be in the competition, and then Patricia will have access to view those submissions. Then she can send those, select a few of those to you to actually evaluate. And you'll be receiving somewhere between 3 and 5 portfolios to review. We like to make sure each portfolio gets at least 3 reviews, preferably more, to make sure that we can average the scores of judges together for a pretty even, consistent score for each portfolio. So if we have similar amounts of judges and portfolios, then if we need it reviewed, each portfolio reviewed 3 times, that means you'll get about 3, and what we say 3 to 5 to be on the safe side. And so you'll receive those. It's actually distributed in an automated random fashion, and so the portfolios you receive will be automated and random. There's really no control for the bulk distribution of these portfolios. So you'll just be receiving 3 random ones. What that means is that you may have the top 3 performing portfolios, or you may have the 3 that need the most work. So it's kind of hard to know exactly, have the full scope of the competition just from the ones that you have, and that's why we have the rubric. Then you'll have the window for about a little bit over 4 weeks to send your scores back to the competition administrator. That's Patricia, and you'll have to commit to those scores and send them back, and then the Innovation Portal will automatically tally those scores up, and then put the top ranked portfolios on the top, and then Patricia will be able to see those coming in. So that's an overview of the competition. Innovation Portal in general. Anyone can build a portfolio on the Innovation Portal. It's a tool meant to document engineering design work, and then we're using a competition feature to actually judge engineering design development and biomedical capstone experiences within this competition. But the innovation portal in general is open to any students that are doing that work, and actually one of our large subsets of people that are using it are college level students in entry level engineering design courses, and so it's not specific only to Project Lead the Way. So you can build a portfolio to document and design work in a very structured way. Students can invite project partners to their portfolio, and they can give them different rights, being a collaborative partners or a co-owner of the portfolio, and they can invite in as many of those project partners as they want to join in that portfolio. They can also invite their teacher and give them view access to that same portfolio, and so teachers can keep track of the student progress if they're in a course for this developing this portfolio. And one of the really neat things is they can also invite project mentors. You may have already done this. Sometimes students recruit their project mentors to be judges as well, but students can request the same type of review that you're going to be doing and then submitting scores to the competition. Those students can request of a project mentor on the innovation portal to do a review before they submit to a competition. And what that does is give them practice getting a score back with comments on the innovation portal about their portfolio before they actually send it to a competition. And so this is where we're at in this competition. They can take a copy of that portfolio and submit as a submission into the competition and other opportunities as well. And then a really neat thing about this, having a standardized engineering design process defined in the innovation portal, is that they can submit that same portfolio that they've worked on to multiple competitions. And so to be eligible for this competition, you have to be a student, PL2W student in the state of Wisconsin. There's another competition that's hosted on the innovation portal that's an international competition open to any student. And they're just hosted by an organization that wants to do engineering education and promote a competition. So if their portfolio were done by that time, they could submit the same portfolio to that competition and compete in that international competition. So you can create as many portfolios as you want with an account on the innovation portal, and those portfolios will stay with you. We have heard of students printing out their EDD design portfolios and then using it as admission criteria to a college. And so the portfolios will live with the students and stay with them as long as they choose to log into the account. So at this point, I want to pause and see if there's any questions out there about the broad scope and kind of giving you context for what we're doing here and what your role is as a judge. All right, I can go ahead and keep going. Again, if you have any questions, I am monitoring the chat box. I might not get to it right away if I'm looking at where I'm clicking, but feel free to put any questions in that chat box, or you can unmute your audio and interrupt me as well. So let's go to the innovation portal itself. This is the screen that you'll see when you log into the innovation portal. It'll be a little bit of a different window because I have portfolios, and unless you've created one on the innovation portal, you will not. So we have a navigation bar on the left-hand side. The innovation portal starts you in the My Portfolios section because it assumes that you want to create a portfolio if you're logging in to the innovation portal. Your use case as a judge is a little bit different though, because you're evaluating a portfolio, not creating one. So you might not have any portfolios, and you'll see a screen here with some orange splash screen that asks if you want to create a portfolio or review or do something else. The first thing I want to call your attention to on this left-hand sidebar is the My Notifications menu over here. This is where every single notification lives in the innovation portal that is tied to your account. So when you were invited to be a judge for this competition, a notification was put here for you, and you can find that. Let's see if I can find one of those notifications. I think maybe this one. Nope, that was an expiration. All right, so I don't have one of those, but any notification about becoming a judge or being assigned a review is going to be here. So if we take a look at this one, there's a notification that this account has been assigned to review the submission 033 Reach a Tool for Opportunity Training Example Competition. What that means is that I have a competition that I just use for training purposes, and this is the name of the portfolio that I assigned myself to show you for these demonstration purposes. You'll have a notification here when you get the portfolios to review from students. You'll receive notifications here, and you should receive an email from the Innovation Portal as well. And then Patricia is also going to send another email that says, one general email that says that they have been distributed, and you should have student work to evaluate in the Innovation Portal. So if we go down a little bit more, we can find the button called Opportunities. We intentionally did not name it Competition because there's more things in here other than just competitions. They're opportunities. Right now in the current phase, we have two different competitions. Here we have the Minnesota and the Wisconsin competitions. These are two competitions that run a little bit later in the spring. We have a pretty heavy spring season for competitions, and most of them are in the either judging phase or have already completed. So I want to draw your attention to the current and past buttons up here. Right now we're in the current phase, which means these two competitions are competitions where students are still currently working on their portfolios. Once you receive the reviews, that means the competition will be past the phase where students submit because they've already submitted, and then you've been assigned to do a review. So to find this competition, once you have reviews, you're going to need to click this past button here. Once we click past, we can see all the competitions that have already occurred this past year and find the competition that you're judging. We can see the 2015 Wisconsin Engineering Design Competition here. This one will disappear and will be replaced with the 2016 competition once the 2016 competition rolls over and the students have submitted their work. And so you won't see the 2015, but you will see the 2016. For the purpose of this training demonstration, I'm going to click on this training example competition just to show you how it works in the Innovation Portal. On this page, you'll see some basic information about the competition, including that registration window that I talked about and that submission window, the open and close dates. There's very little other other information loaded here for this training demonstration, but the Wisconsin competition page has all the information specific about restrictions, who's eligible, what are the prizes, how it will be evaluated, and all that, which you can take a look at if you wanted to. This blue bar on top means that I'm a judge. I have special access to this competition. If you look into a different competition, like if you were to go into the Minnesota one, you would not have this bar. You would still be able to view the general public information, but you wouldn't have this blue bar on top. For the Wisconsin one, you should if you are a judge. And we can click reviews here to look at the reviews that you have been assigned as a judge inside this competition. Right now, it will say 0 out of 0 because you are a judge, but you haven't been assigned to evaluate anything because students haven't finished doing their part and submitted their work yet. For this training demonstration, this 17 out of 20 means I've run 17 trainings this spring, completed those, and then I have a few more to do, and we're going to complete one of these today on the call. So each box down here is a review that I have completed. That has been assigned to me, and if the status is complete, that means I've already done it and submitted the scores in the competition. And if it says active, which let's scroll down a little bit, find one that says active. Self-cooling pillow, so that one is active, which means I still need to evaluate it. And just as a note, I have 17 of 21. You won't receive that many. It'll be somewhere between 3 and 5. And what we find from judges, what they tell us is the first one takes a little bit over an hour to evaluate because it takes some time to read the rubric and understand it and use it the first time. And then each one after that takes a little bit under an hour to evaluate. And those are just averages. It also kind of depends on how much content the students load into their portfolio. But so 3 to 5 portfolios that you'll be assigned is roughly 3 to 5 hours of time that you're volunteering to assist for this competition. But if I scroll down to the Active One self-cooling pillow, if we click on this, we can see the actual student content that that they loaded into their portfolio. So these are some sample portfolios that I use for training. It looks like some specific identifying information has been redacted here, but I want to draw your attention to the right-hand side. This is our menu bar now for within the portfolio. We're loaded into the portfolio cover page. On this cover page, I kind of like to make the analogy of a 3-ring binder on this page. The portfolio is like a 3-ring binder, and we have a plastic insert on the front cover. And this is the cover page. There's nothing to evaluate on the cover page, but students load different information there. Sometimes they have an executive summary. Sometimes they have pictures of themselves, their project, or whatever they want to put there. The first element that we need to actually evaluate is element A. So if we highlight that and click on it, we can see the student content that addresses element A. There's 14 different elements down the side, A through N, and this is the engineering design process laid out and a rubric attached to it. So I'm sorry, back to the student work. Over here, I have a scroll wheel on my mouse, which you can use. If you have one, you can scroll that to scroll down. There's also a scroll bar on the right-hand side to pull down to view all the student information. But this element A is all about presentation and justification of the problem. Kind of answers the question, is this a problem worth solving? The specific reflective questions are the first components of the rubric. It's pretty useful because, well, for students and teachers, it's a checklist. So the teachers can ask the student, here's a checklist, have you done this? For example, the first one, have you provided a clear and concise problem statement that offers cause and effect phrasing and includes some level of data or statistics about the severity of the problem? So that gives you as a judge a little bit of understanding about what's going to be covered in this element. It gives you the scope of what should be covered and then what shouldn't be covered. And so it kind of gives you a taste of what will be covered and gives you that limit or that limiting factor, that scope, so that you know what will not be covered. This is the element, the next part is the element rubric aspect, and it's really the scores ranging from 0 to 5, with text describing what it takes to get these different scores. 5 being the best, 0 being the worst. And then I think I mentioned it earlier, but I want to reiterate that the rubric was developed with a lot of care and attention. It's a pretty large NSF grant over a period of 3 years with a collaboration of researchers and engineering educators. And what you have is their delineation of what the engineering design process is, and then a rubric built to score it, with scores ranging from 0 to 5. The 5 is not perfection, but it is the highest score, and it is the text that describes this is the text that describes what needs to be done to get a 5. So you can read that. If you click the 4, then you can read what needs to be done to get a 4. The team had a rubric specialist working on this with them, and the tricky thing when building a rubric is to make each of these steps the same distance. And so you have the distance between 0 and 1, and then 1 and then 2 should be the same, which is the same as 2 to 3, 3 to 4, and 4 to 5. And that's pretty hard to do writing this language, but they tried to get as close as they could here. And so you have that text description of what each score should be assigned to for different student work. It's kind of like a staircase, so it's each step up, and it's even amounts. If you've ever climbed a staircase with different levels or different step heights, you've probably tripped because it kind of throws you off. But we try to make these stair steps an even step each step up. The way it's not like a staircase, however, though, is that you don't need to meet every single requirement in 3 to get a score of 3. And what I mean by that is, if you have a score that definitely is a 2 and then is maybe a 3, what your job is as a judge, and a pretty difficult job to do, is really delineate which one is it closer to. So if you think a student work is somewhere between a 2 and a 3, your job is to determine what is it closer to. Is it closer to this description of a 2, or is it closer to a 3? It doesn't need to meet every requirement of a 3 to get a score of 3. It just needs to be closer to a 3 than a 2. So hopefully that was clear. To do that, you have another piece of another weapon in your inventory as a judge here. So for element A, in a score of 3, we have a scored example of student work. So this is one of those example portfolios from that the researchers used to come up with a good example of what a 3 is and the commentary on why it's a good 3. But before I click on this, I want you to direct your attention to the upper left-hand part of my screen. So just direct your attention up there, and while I click this. So we open up a new tab. This is a PDF file. Your computer and web browser may handle it differently than mine did, or may handle it the same. So you may download a PDF file, you may open a new tab and then it not jump to it, or it may jump to a new tab and download it like it did here. But either way, no matter what happens, you should still have the student content here in this other tab if you click that. If you go back to this tab with a PDF file, you have a document that is relevant to element A, score of 3. And then the first thing you have here is the paragraph text description of why this is scored as a 3, this student work we're going to see down further in the page. And so you have a really good insight into the thinking process of the evaluators on why they scored this as a 3. So this was scored as a 3, but then some of those evaluators that came together actually did score this as a 4. So we could consider this probably a pretty high 3 as a score, to kind of calibrate that baseline. And again, going back to the science fair project, this is like you being able to walk around the room and see what's out there first. So if we scroll down, we have other components. This is the entire rubric available to you, just a summary of it, grouped by 5 different components and then 14 different elements, and this document is relevant to just only element A. And then if we scroll down, within element A, there are 6 different scores, up to the point value of 5, of different values that you can assign to a portfolio. This one is only relevant for score of 3, and that's highlighted there. So if we scroll down further, we can see actual student work. So this is a PDF printout of a portfolio of actual student work, and this was rated as a 3. So we can scroll down and look at this content. We can look at the description that those evaluators wrote and kind of come to an understanding for why this was rated as a 3. So pretty powerful piece of a pretty powerful tool that you have at your disposal there. Going back to the student work, back over here, if we want to upload the score of 3, if we want to actually mark this as a score of 3, we are not marking the score by clicking this 3 right here. And clicking this 4 here is not marking as a 4. This is probably the #1 cause of confusion among judges once they actually get their portfolios. So maybe we could hit a mark on that YouTube rewind video. But so this is not a 3. If we move our mouse to the left outside of that right sidebar, what we can see on the bottom right-hand corner is a blue pen icon. This is actually your score sheet to input your score on. Again, going back to that science fair analogy, if you had a clipboard with pieces of paper to do an evaluation on, this is like that piece of paper that you have to actually write your score down on, write your comments on, and then give to the scorekeeper for the science fair. So we said that this was probably a 3, so we can click on this as a score of 3. At this point, if we're unsure and we want to look at the rubric again, we could either open up that right sidebar again, or we can click this little plus here. And what this does is open up a window that we can drag around and we can look at. So maybe it's a 4, click that, read the text description here, but then maybe decide that we actually do think that it is a 3. It gets a little crowded sometimes with screen real estate, so you can close that with the X button there. So let's put a comment in here as well. This is a comment. There's a couple different places. Well, before these two things are saved automatically. You clicking the 3 and comments that you write are automatically saved by the Innovation Portal every couple microseconds, and so there's no save button if you notice. We could close the window out right now and it'd be saved once we log in again. So let me tell you a little bit about what your comments, where they'll go. If you put a comment in, there's 3 possible uses of your comments. The first one is potentially feedback to students and teachers. It's ultimately up to the competition administrator to provide that information back to the students and teachers, but typically what we see is the comments provided to teachers who then can use it as a teaching tool if they choose to, if they think it's appropriate in the context in their classroom. So that's one, feedback to the actual students that submitted it. A second place that your comments can go and way that they can be used are to break ties. So sometimes there are extremely close scores for portfolios, and in those cases, the competition administrator can go into your evaluations and read the comments that you put and attach to each submission, each to review, and to understand whether they should bump that one up or drop it down in the case of to use as a tiebreaker. So that's the second way that your comments can be used. Third one, as I mentioned, that some engineering educators and researchers developed this rubric. It's called the EDPPSR rubric that we're using. The whole goal of the rubric is to establish a engineering design process and then a rubric that evaluators can use and consistently rate student work and come up with the same scores with the same work. And so there's current ongoing research from those researchers that look into how good is the rubric and how good is the training resources to judges, and do judges come up with consistent scores for the same student work. And one way they do that is to look at the comments to understand what aspect of the rubric that you're looking at to justify or come up with the score that you did come up with. So, judges could look at 2 different aspects within the same element and come up with different scores, and that's information that they'd like to know. So those are the 3 different ways that your comments may be used if you choose to put a comment in. Any questions about that so far? All right. Quiet group today. I will continue on. So to close this, we can close the panel and look at the student work, and again it's all saved automatically. So if we click that button again, we still have our comment in there. So that was just element A. To load the next element, we want to highlight B and then click it, and we can load the student content that they put here for element B. And again, we can use our wheel on our mouse, or we can drag down the scroll bar to view all of the student work. There's a lot of different content that students can load into portfolios. A lot of pictures, sometimes even videos they embed, especially in the testing phase. Typically what I see down here at I is I and J, or actually H and I. A lot of times we'll see videos in those sections because students will videotape their test and then to see how the prototype is working. So lots of different media things you'll be able to review in here, depending on what portfolios you get. So let's say this one, we're taking a look at the rubric. We read the reflective questions here to know what we're going to be covering. Then maybe we thought students did really good on this one and maybe they did really good and got like a 4 here. So we think this one is a 4. So to upload that score, we can click that pen icon. We can hit 4 and we can put another comment in here. So we can close that score panel and then go to the next one. So we can keep going all the way down. One thing I'll ask of you as judges is if there's no content loaded, go ahead and put a score of 0. And that does happen sometimes. If students don't finish their work, sometimes they'll submit a portfolio and they'll have a blank section. So if there is a blank section, go ahead and put a score of 0. The 2 exceptions to that are the elements M and N. These 2 will not have any content loaded into it because they are holistic elements. M is about the presentation style, the quality of the presentation, and then N is about writing like an engineer. their writing style and writing capability. So those two are relevant for all the content for the entire portfolio, not specific content for those two elements. And so those should be blank. You don't need to score those 0 for being blank, but just score them just following the rubric, however you think the rest of the content, how it should be scored, these two, M and N. So let's say that we worked all the way through that, and then now we are ready to submit our scores and send them back to Patricia. It is July 14th, and we'd want to get our scores in. We can click Complete Review here, and then we're brought to the page that I like to call the Amazon Shopping Cart page. It's the summary of what you've done. So we have one last chance to change any of these scores and change any comments before we actually package them up in the mail and send them. We can see each score that we uploaded, and we can see each comment that we put on each element. If we have a question mark, that's an indicator to us that we haven't finished and we need to go back. So don't submit anything that has a question mark in there, because that means it hasn't been done. There's no score actually loaded. So if we scroll down, so let's say we're going to ignore all these question marks for now, just for this example. And going back to the science fair analogy with the score sheets, this is like dropping your scores off in the mail. So this is like putting a stamp on it, and then complete review is like dropping in the mail. It's finalized. You can't change anything at this point. Sometimes judges like to score each portfolio one at a time, but typically what returning judges do, and we have judges that are going into their third year now in some competitions, what they say they advise and what they like to do is score each portfolio without hitting this complete review, just all the numbers loaded in for all the portfolios that are assigned, and then so they can always go back and tweak something if they want to, and then committing and actually completing review all at the end. So they have the maximum amount of time to actually tweak different things. So, but once this button is checked and then this one is hit, we're going to go ahead and do that now. The scores are finalized, and the reason the Innovation Portal is built like that is that the competition administrator needs a final score from judges eventually. So there is a point of no return there. So we're back on the main Innovation Portal page. We have the left-hand navigation. My reviews were dropped into here. On this page is every single review that you have been assigned on the Innovation Portal. And remember, reviews can be within the context of a competition. So you'll have the reviews to do within the competition. But if you have mentored a team, users can ask for direct reviews. And so those will be here as well. So if we scroll down, I forgot the name of I think it was Self-Cooling Pillow was the name of the portfolio here that we just did. We see that has a badge that says complete. That means it's already done. If it said active, that means that it's not done yet and we still need to evaluate it. So even though we've completed this, we can still click into it and look at the student content. We're back in the main portfolio cover page again. And again, there's no evaluation on the cover page, but if we click A, that little blue icon that was there before is no longer present. And that means that we can't submit a score for this portfolio or this element in the portfolio. We can, however, review what we've done. So we can review the summary and we can go back to the Amazon Shopping Cart page. We can see that we had a score of 3 and 4 and the comments that we put in here. So if we go back to review, we can see the student content again. I try not to use this My Reviews to find the next one to evaluate because I have a lot of different competitions attached to my account, and you may if you return. But if you go to Opportunities, we can find the next portfolio to actually evaluate. Opportunities and then Past. We always got to click that Past button because we're evaluating competitions that have already been done. Students have already completed. We can click this training example competition, click Reviews, and then we're at that page with every review that we were assigned within this competition. And I think we had 17 here before. Now we have 18 complete of 21, and so we'll still have 3 more to do. And again, your number will be much lower, somewhere between 3 and 5 reviews to do. And if we scroll down to the pillow, self-cooling pillow, we can see that it is complete and verify that. And then if we wanted to go to the next one and start evaluating that, we can look at, for the next one that's active, looks like this dual shoulder camera mount is the next one that we could evaluate. So I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover here. This is back going to the PDF. The document here. I want to share 3 documents that you'll be receiving after this training. The first is a PDF of a step-by-step guide for judges, and what that is kind of a click-through guide of where to click to log in and find the portfolios that have been assigned to you. The second document are the reflective questions from the portal, and these are the those checklist questions for students, and also a score, all the scores of 5 to give you a good summary of the rubric as a whole. And then you'll receive a document that's pretty long, which I intentionally don't send out to judges before the training, because you don't need to read this all the way through, because during your judging process, this is the portfolio, the rubric that you'll be using to evaluate each piece of student work. But I do want to provide the full PDF document to you, because judges like to sometimes print that out if they're working on a laptop maybe and want to save some screen real estate, or if they have 2 monitors, you can put up this PDF on one monitor and then do the evaluation on another monitor. So as this is a pretty large PDF document, I think it's about 20 pages or so of text. But with that, I think the last thing I want to tell you is just tell you thank you. There's very few opportunities when using a virtual platform to recognize judges and say thank you. The work that you're doing is allowing students the opportunity for a pretty nice piece of recognition. To really gets their, as Patricia said, gets their projects out of the attic and out into the world, into other people's hands to see them, and you're providing the opportunity for recognition. So thank you for the work that you're about to do as a judge. It means quite a bit, and thank you very much for volunteering your time. And with that, I'll turn it back to Patricia.
Thank you. I want to thank all of you as new virtual judges for this competition. And as soon as I get the link to the YouTube video, I will send it in an email to you, and attached to that email will be the 3 documents that Elliot referred to: how to access the portfolios, reflective questions, and a complete copy of the scoring rubric. On June 7th, Elliot and I will meet virtually, and we will distribute the portfolios to your buckets. I will then send an email out to you alerting you to look, that you do have some work to do. Your judging window again is June 8th through July 15th. We'll be recognizing the students on August 3rd. And again, I ask that you judge the portfolios based on how well the team has completed the elements of the rubric, not on the idea or the problem. And in addition to what Elliot suggested, scoring all the rubrics prior to submitting, some judges have actually gone through all of their assigned portfolios and just evaluated element A, and then they've gone through and evaluated element B, and so forth as they move forward. So again, thank you. If you have any questions at all in this process, please do not hesitate to call me. You have both my cell number and my office number. So if it's after hours, please do not hesitate to give me a call, and we will find an answer, because I really appreciate your willingness to work with our students in this manner. Thank you.
So I think that's the end of the training. I'm willing to stay on the line a little bit longer to answer any questions, but thank you very much for attending.
Yeah, Elliot, Brian Sanchez here. I had one question, and that was, I understand that we're not too caught up on the idea, but more of the process and the documentation. I was reading on element J. Should we assume that the field experts and stakeholders have kind of proved out the viability or the facts, and that we shouldn't get too caught up in questioning that?
Well, element J is about you evaluating them in the process of reaching out to the mentors and experts.
Okay.
And so what you're really looking for here is that they have good documentation of reaching out to experts, asking for feedback that matters, quality feedback, and then properly summarizing that feedback in a way that is that makes sense quite a bit. And so I sometimes see students that would have, I put the actual emails in, say that here's our general request email, and these are all the responses that we got, and then like a quick summary, and this is what's relevant and why that, what's relevant about the feedback that they gave. So it's really about just still the process, but the process of them asking for feedback.
Okay. All right. Thank you.